nearly 6,000 miles north of Brazil to look at an economy that's doing much better. Canada's GDP grew by more than expected in the second quarter, hitting the fastest pace in almost 3 years. The economy expanded by an annualized 3.1% between April and June, thanks to a rebound in exports and increased growth in household spending. Christian Yo has more for us live from Montreal. Christian.
Yes, Elaine, good spirits here today. The stock exchange reacted quite well to the news, and as you said there, 3.1% GDP growth for the spring. That's the period from April to June of this year. Analysts expecting about 2.7%, so it beat their expectations, although it's not quite as strong as the GDP we've seen come out of the US today. Essentially put, consumers are spending more and exporters are selling more, and that's very much the theme that I'm going with today. Exporters are hugely important to the Canadian economy. We're here right now in Quebec, which is the province known for its maple syrup. About 80% of the world's maple syrup comes from Canada, and about 90% of all Canadian maple syrup comes from right here. What most people don't know is that Montreal was once a thriving garment-making city. It was one of the world's leaders in making and selling garments around the world, starting with the fur trade. But as we know, what happened to most of the clothing industry is that it went to Asia because of costs. But there are still a few Canadian businesses that I've been seeing this week who still make their clothes and they sell their clothes around the world.
It's not Paris or Milan, but at times it can feel pretty close. Montreal is a stylish city, from the historic European-inspired streets to the fashionable people that walk them.
A lot of culture, a lot of nightlife. We love looking good, dressing, so that's what Montreal is, really. If you go to the old port, you'll see everybody's dressed up beautifully. It's important for us here. We love fashion.
Montrealers aren't just followers of fashion. For hundreds of years, garment making was a big driver of the local economy, ever since fur traders first made fortunes here in the 18th century.
Montreal was once Canada's fashion capital and one of North America's great garment-making hubs. But cheaper labour and production techniques in Asia led to a decline in this city's once thriving industry.
Keeping it going in Canada has proved challenging. Fewer clothes are being made here. Shipments and exports have declined, whilst imports from countries like China and Bangladesh have increased. Today, a new wave of fashion houses now call Montreal home. In this ultra-competitive, globalized market, designers need passion, patience, and a little bit of luck to succeed.
The garment industry is a very tough business. It's tight margins, it's lots of competition, competing with other people in Montreal, competing with other people in North America, competing with people overseas. So you really have to be on top of the style elements as well as cost elements.
Leather goods fashion house Lamarck sells jackets to some of the biggest department stores in North America, with big plans to export more to Asia and Europe.
Right now, pretty much everything you see behind me here is going to Nordstrom's. So we deal with them. Then in Canada, the Bay is one of our bigger clients. We also deal with Neiman Marcus, Cusp, with Saks, Kitson.
The team isn't content with stamps of approval from Nordstrom or Saks. They see a strong social media strategy and celebrity endorsements as the key to growing their brand. Of course, there's more to building a successful brand than just star power, but when it comes to exciting the world's feverish fashion followers, it certainly helps.
Now, Elaine, we don't know specifically how Quebec has done in these GDP figures out today. The province ruled by provincial figures only come out once a year. What we do know from today's figures is what areas of export did best in that last period. Cars and trucks were selling more of them than ever before, 13% rise on the same quarter last year. The other one, farming and fishing products, also up 13.9%, Elaine.
And speaking of exports and international trade, there has been some disagreement over Canada's trade pact with the European Union.
Yes, absolutely. This has been long awaited, not just here and in Europe, but also in the US, because this EU trade pact with Canada really lays the foundations and is the basis for one which will eventually be between the EU and the United States. And the stumbling block right now is perceived to be a problem with both Canada and America in its dealings with Europe, which is that they believe that American corporations and Canadian corporations may start to bully single EU states and perhaps play them off against one another. It's hugely important that this deal goes through in terms of getting the trade across the Atlantic Ocean, and not just, as I say, important to Canada, but to America as well.
And another big economic story in Canada today, more Chinese investment in the oil sands. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, well, this is another one that's been hanging in the balance for quite some time. PetroChina has been wanting to buy more operations in Alberta, and they've now finally purchased a 40% stake in the Dover operations in northern Alberta. They're buying it from the company Athabasca. Now, that deal was put on hold after PetroChina, its chief here in Canada, was investigated for corruption. He's now been replaced. But during that turmoil, the deal was put on ice. And the offer that PetroChina has made is a little bit under what was originally believed to be the price, $1.18 billion US. Still a massive deal, and it gives liquidity to that operation in Alberta now, and it means that operations can be scaled up and output can be scaled up as well.
And Christian, quickly, there's been more talk of a housing bubble in Canada as well.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about this. Can they fall? Will the prices fall? Of course, Canada never had a price crash when the US and Europe did. Analysts more are now saying we think there could be a price correction, particularly in Toronto and Vancouver, where the condo market's a bit oversaturated. But the vast majority, the average predictions for the coming years in Canada, real estate up 5% this year, up 2% next year, and up 2% again in 2016. You've just got to be careful where you buy that real estate, Elaine.
All right, Christian Yo in Montreal, thanks for